We are joined right now by Captain Gene Saunders. He is the CEO of Project Lifesaver International. Captain, are you there? There, I can see him now. There we go. For a parent who's watching, having Project Lifesaver in their community would be a great thing because, first of all, the support, the fire support staff and the police support staff are going to be trained and know when they're searching for a child the proper way to interact, because we know some of our kids are afraid of strangers. We've all taught our kids to be afraid of strangers, and we've seen and heard of circumstances where children have actually run away from rescuers. Is that right?
That's absolutely true. In fact, it's not only true with autism, but even Alzheimer's patients will do the same thing. They will tend to hide, feeling that maybe they have done something wrong or that they're going to be punished in some way. Whatever the reason, they do not assist in the search efforts in helping to find them.
Right. So you go in, and over a 2-day process, you're going to train all of the staff in terms of how to interact and how to do that. But there's also, you mentioned this radio frequency technology. Why? Because, you know, there are other things out there that offer GPS, and that's certainly something as a parent that I've heard a great deal about. But you are saying that GPS is not as effective, right?
Absolutely.
And tell us why.
Well, first off, you have to remember and give you some historical background. Radio direction finding actually came into wide use during World War II, where they were trying to find the enemy through the tracking of their radio signals. It evolved into much more use, and it went into wildlife tracking and is and has been used for many, many years. It is very reliable. For one, radio signals will penetrate just about anything but lead.
Okay.
So if someone's out here with a radio transmitter, as long as it's sending a signal, a receiver is capable of receiving it. As I said, only lead will block it.
Yeah.
GPS is not the same. If you've got GPS in your car, try pulling under a bank overhang or under a real thick tree or under an overpass and see what happens to your GPS signal. You'll probably get a signal such as lost satellite signal. And this is the big bugaboo with GPS. People that have it on, especially those with dementia or children with autism that don't understand the properties of it,
right,
go places where the signal will not get out and will not reach the satellites. Therefore, we are at a loss in trying to locate them through the use of those particular type signals.
Right.
Where a radio signal, regardless of where they're at, that radio signal is going to get out, and we're going to get it. And that's part of the training we give these agencies is what methods do you use to get in to acquire that signal and then start your track. It's just not a reliable device or technology, especially in this application. If you're on a boat or an airplane where there's nothing to obstruct that signal, then that's fine and that's wonderful. In fact, that's what it was designed for, those type of applications. This is not an application where it is, you know, where I would say it should be used.
Right. Well, that certainly makes sense to me. I think we've all experienced having our phones or whatever and trying to get a signal and you can't. And I can't imagine anything worse than counting on that in a moment when every moment is precious in recovering your child. In fact, that's part of what your service does is that you cut down on the time finding a child, correct?
Absolutely. You know, typical searches can last hours and hours and involve up to hundreds of people. The average time that we have experienced throughout our history has been right at in a little less than 30 minutes from the time of arriving on the scene to locating the individual wearing the device.
Okay, so really, though, crucial that your child or the adult that is in question has a device. And I know we have a picture of the devices that you had sent us. I'm going to ask Matt to put that up in the next couple of seconds. What does this, how does this device function? What do we need to know about it as a parent? I imagine it's something that's pretty safe, but tell me a little bit about the device.
It is very safe. It emits a radio signal 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on a preset frequency for that particular bracelet. It is battery powered. The bracelet can operate, depending on the type we have out there, from anywhere from 45 days to 60 plus days without a battery change.
Okay.
It sends a signal once per second where we can pick it up with a receiver. And as I said earlier, trained individuals can then track using that signal right to where the person is.
And we're just showing a picture of the receiver, pointing to see it, but we will find the picture of the actual bracelets. So is it something that's waterproof? Is this something that our child wears while bathing, or is it something that we put on at certain times during the day? There's the bracelet.
No, it is worn 24 hours a day. It is, I hesitate to use the word waterproof because I don't know of nothing that is absolutely waterproof.
Okay.
It is highly water resistant. You can bathe in it. You can swim in it. You can do your normal life type functions with no problem.
Okay.
And it will continue to transmit. Now, if you were to take it and beat it with a hammer, that may be another situation. But
well, that would be a misuse of it.
We have to be realistic here. In that normal wear and tear through daily, life is not going to affect it.
Right.
And it is on with a band that has to be cut off.
Okay, so the child can't get it off themselves.
A person can take on or off.
Okay, great. And I imagine there's a specific way to put it on. Do we need to have law enforcement help us put it on, or is it something that a parent can figure out for themselves?
Well, under our program, we have the law enforcement or volunteers trained.
Okay.
Will actually place the bracelet, and every 30 to 60 days, they will come out and examine it. By taking it off, they will replace the battery, make sure it's functioning properly, and they will put it back on.
Okay.
And this is one of the hallmarks of our program that, aside from being a nonprofit, that differentiates us from some others out there. Caregivers are good, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But caregivers have issues during life that may cause them to forget to do things from time to time.
Yeah.
And forgetting this battery, because it is not, it has reached its life limit and is now not working. And then a search come up and we can't find them because there's no power to the device. That's not willing that we as a program are willing to accept.
Right.
So therefore, I think one of the big reasons for the success of Project Lifesaver is that the agencies actually maintain the maintenance and the changing of the batteries rather than leaving it to the caregivers and the stresses or adding to the stresses they already have.
Okay, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think as a parent, knowing that somebody else is going to regularly show up at my house and change this, I think that gives me some peace of mind and one less thing for me to worry about. So let's talk about, from the parent's point of view, how do they go about getting this service in their community? Well,
first I would check our website and find out if it's already in their community and through what agency, either police, sheriff, or fire, or maybe a search and rescue. If it's not in your community, call us. Okay. We will give you some tips on how to get it into your community and get it started.
Okay.
And we will give you some assistance as you move forward in doing that.
Okay, wonderful. So it's not like they got to reinvent the wheel by themselves. You'll give some tips and some help, but it's something that they'll have to advocate for. It's one of those things I always hate to talk about, but I'm sure that there's a certain amount of money attached for a community to be a part of this service, and I'm sure that there is an amount of money that's attached to the actual bracelet. Do the parents, I imagine it's their responsibility to pay for the bracelet? Is that true?
That depends on the agency.
Okay.
Now, to actually start this program in a community and get the training necessary for the agency cost about $3,900. That may sound like a lot of money until you look at what one search can typically cost.
Right.
An agency, which could be up in the $9,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 range per search.
Right.
So that is the initial startup cost. The individual bracelets themselves are right about $300.
Very affordable when you're talking for
Yeah,
a
and
service
they
like
have a
this.
5-year warranty. So if anything happens to them in 5 years, they're replaced. And the agencies can then decide, depending on their budget or their fundraising capabilities, if they want to charge a small monthly fee to the parents
Okay.
for the replacement of the battery and band, and or no fee at all. We have many agencies that follow that course. There is no fee, and some that charge a reasonable fee just to keep the battery and band purchased and replaced.
Okay.
So it's up to the agency, and quite often what we see is private organizations, nonprofits, and so forth will team with these public safety organizations and help them in conducting the program and raising the money to keep it going.
Absolutely. And I also want to say for parents, if you're looking on the Project Lifesaver International website and you're seeing that it is in your community, but you need to pay for the band, that's something you can apply for a grant for from Autism Care and Treatment Today, and they are in a grant phase right now. So don't decide not to be a part of it because of that, because Autism Care and Treatment Today offers grants for those kinds of things exactly. We're going to take a little bit of a break, Captain Saunders, but when we come back, I want to talk about the kinds of rescues you've been able to do and the lives you've been able to save as a result of this service. So everybody stick with us. We're going to have more with Captain Saunders when we come back. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're talking to Captain Gene Saunders from Project Lifesaver International. Captain Saunders, I'm just wondering how this organization came to be.
During that time, I found that we were starting to increase in our search efforts for missing Alzheimer's patients. Mm-hmm. And we were not doing what I would call tremendously good job in being able to find them, one, before something happened to them, mm-hmm. or two, even being able to find them at all before the event turned tragic. Mm-hmm. During that whole course of time, I kept saying to myself, excuse me, there's got to be a better way to do this. We're putting a lot of manpower out here, a lot of money, and we're not anywhere near as successful as I felt we should be. Mm-hmm. Well, shortly thereafter, the search and rescue function actually got changed over to the sheriff's office. But since I was a friend of the sheriff as well, he volunteered me to not only work at the police department, but to head up the search and rescue function for the sheriff's office. We still had the same situation. We were still dealing with Alzheimer's patients and the same outcomes. The sheriff happened to go to a conference back about 1997, and he brought back a pamphlet which talked about radio direction finding and tracking of wildlife. Well, on reading that, I just had the thought, now, if we could identify those persons that would wander, provide them with one of these bracelets, and we could track them through this radio signal, we could do it a lot quicker, a lot less manpower, and most likely save lives that we ordinarily would not have done.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I called the manufacturer and we worked some things out. I then went to a local hospital and was able to convince them to give me a grant to start a pilot program. And this was just for Chesapeake. Mm-hmm. Well, when we made the announcement, there are other cities that are contiguous to Chesapeake that decided they wanted coverage as well. So we ended up covering 5 major cities until their departments came on board. And after we made the first couple of rescues, the word just kind of got out. And I started getting calls from across Virginia and across the country that they were interested in starting this program. So I was doing that as well as doing my police job, doing each about 60 to 70 hours a week. So finally, at about 2001, after talking to my wife, she felt the same way I did, that maybe it was time to devote full-time effort to this particular program, because it seemed to be taking off a lot more than I could handle it on a part-time basis. So I did, and now it's grown to almost 1,300 agencies in 46 states, Canada, Australia, and getting ready to start in the UK.
Really very amazing. And you have made a number of rescues, correct?
You're right at 2,536.
That's amazing.
Without a failure, I might add.
Without a single failure. So anybody who has done this program and had a bracelet, you have had no loss of life.
No loss of life, no serious injuries. Now I will not tell you that all of them were tracked by the radio signal, but a number of them were identified because the caregiver didn't know they had gotten out, and somebody did find them, saw the wristband and knew what it was, and made the call.
Okay.
So
really,
it has,
really
affected rescues in more ways than one.
Yeah, absolutely. And statistically, when, especially for children with autism, come up missing, the odds of having 100% without loss of life, it's nothing like that without your service, is it?
No, I'm afraid to say it is not.
Yeah.
And with autistic children, the clock is absolutely working against us.
Yeah. Yeah. I well up even thinking about it. And we see almost every day there's another case, unfortunately, of a child on the spectrum who's missing. And while sometimes those cases are solved and there's a happy ending, there are enough times that there are tragic endings that as parents we lose sleep over it. And when you think about the peace of mind of knowing that your entire community has this service and that your child has this service, I think it is the answer to a lot of parents' prayers, what you're doing.
I think so. And we hear that term a lot, peace of mind.
Yeah.
So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, we've been talking all day long about managing stress, and that with autism, stress comes no matter what you do, but figuring out what you can do versus what you can't do. And this is something that you absolutely can do. So your website is projectlifesaverinternational.org. Is that correct?
Just projectlifesaver.org.
Projectlifesaver.org. And they can go there and do a search to see if you're already in their community.
Yes, ma'am. And then if you're not, let us know and we'll help you get it started.
And I have already said to Captain Saunders that I looked and my community is not. And so I'm going to be talking to him about how we can make that happen in my community. Because even though my son is no longer a flight risk, there was a period of time, about a 2.5 year time when he was, and we need this service. And because I know there are other kids in my community that are a flight risk. So I'll be talking to you about that. And again, I want to reiterate that if you are someone, it's already in your community, but you're feeling like you don't have the funds for the bracelet, which by the way is very affordable, all things considered. But if you don't have those funds, I want to remind you that you can apply for a grant from Autism Care and Treatment Act Today, act-today.org, because that's the kind of thing that they give grants for. So Captain Saunders, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and all of those lives that you have saved. Any idea how many of those, because I know you deal with other things, dementia and Alzheimer's, about how many of those 2,500 plus were kids with autism? Do you know?
I really don't, but I can tell you this: in the last 8 to 9 years, the number has increased tremendously.
Yeah.
So now when somebody asks me ratio Alzheimer's to autism, I would venture a guess that we're almost 50-50, if not a little bit more, on the autism side.
I bet you've got some really tearjerker testimonials from some parents too on your website.
Well, we've got a few. We've had some interesting searches and some interesting situations that have proven to be real heart-wrenching sometimes.
Yeah. Well, again, I thank you for everything that you're doing, and I hope that anybody who needs this service, and I know there are a lot of you who are watching who really do, don't wait. You know how they say, sometimes the universe sends you a pebble and then sends you a rock? Don't wait until you're wishing that you had this service. Check out their website, www.projectlifesaver.org. Go there, see if your community is on there, and if they're not, contact them about making it a part of your community. Captain Saunders, thank you so much for being with us. I hope we can have you on again sometime.
Anytime. Thank you so much for letting me be here. And if there's anything I can ever do, you know where to find me.
Well, likewise. If you ever have something new in particular, let us know because we'd be thrilled to have you back on again.
Thank you.
Take care.